Hello and welcome to our 21st Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm CyndiONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector at Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. So each week, we nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice. And around the 45-minute mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share the ahas, epiphanies, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So the inspiration of our bi-weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real talks is to create purposeful conversations. So we desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times, and of course, to support our community to make an impact in the world and also stay connected. So as you get started, I invite you to set aside distractions and invest your attention to the conversation that's about to unfold. So look for just one idea or one takeaway that you can put into action so you don't cheat yourself out of the time you've invested here. Our conversation to connect this week is with the always amazing Nicole Lux Ritchie from Issaquah, Washington. Welcome, Nicole.
Hey, Cyndi, good to see you. Thanks for inviting me today.
Oh, thanks so much for coming. It's just a pleasure to be able to have this conversation with you. And I really enjoyed the kind of the pre-conversation we had getting ready. So our listeners are in for a treat. So the topic today is there is no such thing as good or not good with computers. So I love the way Nicole has developed her, kind of talk and the questions. And so before I bring her on to discuss this intriguing topic, it's my pleasure to share some background about her and her journey. So Nicole comes to us as a multi-generational, deep-rooted, native Western Washingtonian, I guess, who needs to be watered often. So she began her career in the technology space as a support representative during the pioneer days of online banking. She's owned and operated several small businesses ranging from MLM to brick and mortar to service-based. As a technology guide, productivity consultant, and speaker, Nicole has enjoyed over 2 decades of working with small businesses, solopreneurs, and tech-shy individuals to start where they are, use what they have, and do what they can to build sustainable businesses and technology practices. Again, she lives in Issaquah, Washington with her husband, 4 young children, or 4 young adults. Is that right?
Yes, young adults.
And a parrot. I feel like I should be singing a song. And a partridge in a pear tree. So, okay, let's get started here. We've got a lot to cover, and I'm excited to be able to have Nicole share with us today. So I'm going to start us off. Is that okay, Nicole?
Absolutely.
All right. So here's the question of the hour. How did you get started coaching people on technology?
Well, I have been working in technology for most of my adult life. I love to tinker with things. And so I was known in my family as, one of the people who knew about computers or was good with computers. And I put quotes around that because it's really not a thing. But back in my stay-at-home mom days, my grandma called me up and says, hey, could you come over maybe once a week and teach me how to use a computer? I want to learn how to use a computer. She wanted to do email. She wanted to research things. She wanted to take advantage of all of the cool things a computer could do. And so that was about, I guess, almost 16 years ago, maybe 17 years ago. And she was 80 at the time. And for about a year, I would bring my little baby over to grandma's house, and we together developed a beginning computer tutorial on how to learn the computer. And so we would do things from as simple as how do you use the mouse, the right click and the left click and what's the difference and how to do them. We learned how to do searches on the internet, so she could monitor her missionaries that she would pray for. And it was really great. And after about a year, she looks at me and she says, "You're really good at this. You should go do this for other people." And I'm like, okay, because I always wanted to be good at something. And so I went to a local retirement community and asked them if they needed any, tutoring for their seniors. And they said, "Well, I don't know about tutoring, but could you teach a class?" So I'm like, okay. So I made up a class and taught a class, and I did that for several years as my little stay-at-home mom business. I would go into retirement communities and tutor people side by side with their technology stuff, and it was a lot of fun to do that. And it has gradually morphed to helping independent professionals and business people in a combination of setup and training for how to do stuff computer wise.
That's a beautiful story. I love that. Thank you for sharing it. And, obviously your grandma recognized that you were a natural born teacher, right? And setting you up for success. That's wonderful. Okay, so next, the question of the hour that I have is, your business name is Luxcentric, right? So what does Luxcentric mean, or what is the thought process behind naming your company Luxcentric?
Oh, you might think it's very complicated, but it isn't. At the time when I was, going to be a computer tutor and trainer, I was like, okay, what should I name my business? And my last name at the time was Lux, which means light. And it's like, I love the meaning of the last name that I had at the time. And so we just decided to just center it around our last name. So we called it Luxcentric. And at the time I would capitalize the C. And then fast forward several years, I no longer have that partner. I've got a new one. So I'm now a hyphenated Lux Ritchie, my actual last name now. I lowercase the C and I'm just Luxcentric because I do like the way it flows, and it just is always, it's always fit my business. And I like to think of it as now as light centered.
Yes, centered around light, or light centered. I love that. Okay, so for people who are not familiar with the term digital office, what is a digital office?
Your digital office, and I would love to hear other potential terms for this thing, but your digital office is the core tools that you use when you go about doing the things that you need to do on the computer. So it includes your email and all your digital files, your information. It includes your calendar so that you know where you need to be when you need to be there, and it includes the people that you interact with throughout your business and your doing, so your contacts. So it's effectively your digital office. I guess to kind of simplify the definition would be your G Suite account and your Office 365 account, those productivity tools that you use in those little wheelhouses.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for defining that so that we can have an understanding of the scope of our conversation today. So what do you like most about organizing clients' digital files or office?
I have always loved putting things in order. Whether when I was in elementary school, I would organize my crayons according to color, according to height, and then alphabetically. And just put things in order. I love to untangle yarn. I like to.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
I love to untangle yarn.
Yarn. Okay.
Yarn. So you see a big clump of yarn, and it's like, this is not how this thing should be. We need to put it in order. And so when I see, when I remote into my clients' computers and I see files where they aren't supposed to be, I really just want to put them in order. To me, it's like a game of Tetris or a puzzle. I love just putting it in order.
So it comes naturally. Professional organizer skills come naturally to you.
They kind of do. Sometimes I can over organize things though.
Well, that's great. You're using your gifts. So, okay. So with that in mind, I don't know if this is a weird question or not, but since it comes to mind that you have like professional organizing skills, that's the way your brain works. Mine does too, by the way. That could have been another profession very easily for me. But is there such a thing as a digital hoarder? Is that Is that a terminology that is used?
Um, it's an excellent terminology, and for the digital hoarder, yes, we have absolutely digital hoarders, but the fun thing about being a digital hoarder is that you can actually do it. You don't have to get rid of all of your stuff. It's fun to delete things, but the difference between a digital hoarder and maybe an analog hoarder, is that the right term? Is that with your digital space, you have a lot more space that you can use.
Right.
And so a lot of it, if you do discover yourself as a digital hoarder, and often you might feel that way if your stuff just isn't where it should be. If you have trouble finding things, you can categorize yourself as a digital hoarder in a negative way. But I have files from 1990, something that I still keep. It's like I can do that because I know where they go.
Right.
And so that's kind of fun. You can be a digital hoarder. And also if you choose to organize your digital stuff, you can get a lot of productivity, progress for a lot less money and a lot less time than you can with the physical.
Right. So the operative word is organize.
Organize. Yeah.
Right.
Gotta
Keep
organize.
them organized. Know how to access things that you want. Get your hands on them easily.
Right.
So, bring us up to date. You started out working with seniors, in person, and then you and I were talking about how you moved to remote platforms with them, as they got more comfortable working with you, and then eventually connecting with small business owners. So tell us more about that journey of yours.
Yeah, it was a very fun, organic kind of journey. Like I said, I would teach at retirement communities, and I would sit side by side with them at their computers. And I loved doing it. It was a great stay-at-home mom job. The problem is that the time involved, if it wasn't, right after a session in a retirement community where I could go from, the training class to an hour with this client, an hour with that client, an hour with that client, and then done for the day. If I'd have to drive to a client's house and then sit with them and then drive home, and usually the sitting with them, we'd work for an hour and then we'd have like a half an hour of tea and talk about kids and grandkids and all the fun things that we want to do. Being in person became not viable as far as a business model. So I shifted to a few times being more virtual, and that it kind of originally happened somewhat by accident. In that, when I moved up to Issaquah, I left Tacoma, that's where my grandmother lived. I moved up to Issaquah. Now I'm an hour away from her. I can't just drive over and fix her things. And so I discovered a program that would allow me to remote in. It's not the program I use now. I have a much better system. But we were able to get me remoted into her computer and see what she's doing and see what she had going on and what some of my other clients had going on in their computers. And we were able to focus better on what we actually wanted to do. We didn't have the distractions of getting situated and, tidying up the desk. And we could just focus on what actually needed to be done on the computer. And a lot of my clients now hesitate with the virtual. They're nervous about it at first, and so I'll have that option of, hey, well, how about we just try it? And if you bond with it, great. And if not, we'll figure something else out. And I have yet to have anybody who says, no, this isn't going to work. Once people are able to get that support virtually, it opens up a ton of options for support, because not only can I help them virtually, but they can also get help from many other companies virtually, and it becomes easier. And so a 30, 40 hour long appointment can be 5 minutes, saving everybody time, energy,
Right.
and
And we're
dollars.
learning that in this day of COVID, right? How much more efficient we are. There's Zoom fatigue, of course, that, with doing so many Zoom calls back to back, but,
Right.
I'm finding that I can actually be more efficient because I can have really meaningful conversations and connections without having to leave the house, drive, all of that.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I love how you, really enjoy understanding why technology does what it does. And I think our listeners might be interested in this. Maybe this will help them if they're frequently do Zoom calls. But I was on a Zoom training call that you were doing, and tell us what happened.
That was so much fun. It was probably my favorite Zoom training. I did a series on Zoom, and this particular training was um, we did a training on hosting a Zoom meeting and breakout rooms.
Yes.
So everybody who on the call was interested in being a Zoom host, and we were doing our thing, and we got to, I can't remember which section we got to, but a Zoom bomber joined us. And not even a pretend Zoom bomber. I mean,
The real
if I had,
thing.
yeah, I couldn't have planned this. And we got a Zoom bomber, and the Zoom bomber started spouting unpleasant words and such,
Profanity.
profanities, yes. And so we were able to use that as a training moment, and it was very fascinating as to how we could do this on the fly. It was a lot of fun. The first thing we did was I think I muted everybody, and then locked the room, and then kicked him off. Well, I think I kicked him off, and he immediately came back on. And so it was kick the person off, they logged back on, so we locked the room, kicked the person off again, and it made for a great training, and it helped me understand, how does this work? What can we do? Instead of panicking, instead of worrying, it's like, oh, here's an opportunity to figure out how this is going to work. And
Right.
it was a lot of fun.
It was a great object lesson, though, because I don't know, maybe you paid him
I
because
did
you taught us.
not.
You have to be able to think on your feet,
Yes.
right? And you need to have a plan to know what you're going to do. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just staring there with their mouth open, and everybody's embarrassed. So
Yeah.
you were great. You were just cool as a cucumber. You acted quickly. The guy was persistent, but you took care of it. And then we all kind of giggled and went, "Whoa, what
Whoa.
happened?"
Yeah, yeah. And that is one of the things. It's funny, we were talking, the title of our conversation is about not being good with technology. I mean, it's not a good with technology or not good with technology. It's, can you do the things that you want to do with the computer? And I mean, my grandmother was 80 when we started, and she was successfully able to play solitaire, look on Facebook, email people. And my clients too, they start out like, I don't think I can do it. I'm not good with technology. And it's like, well, you're not good yet because you haven't fiddled around with it enough. You haven't narrowed in on what do you actually want to do with your computer.
Right.
And so we work on that, and it's fun. I love my remote in program, and I'll work with someone a couple of times, and the first couple of times they're like, I do this and then I do this, and it's like, okay, you download this and you download this and you sign in here. And now a lot of them, after a few sessions, they're like, oh, I've got this, I'm on the screen, I need my session ID, and I download and we're on in seconds. And it's fun to watch how they go from, I don't know what this thing is, to, oh, I got this.
Right. Feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, actually, that leads in nicely to the next question I have for you is, what's a myth you'd like to dispel about working with technology of your digital office?
Oh, I guess I did. I kind of jumped the gun on this myth. And the
Segued into
myth,
that.
I did, yeah. The myth that I wanted to spell is that you can actually become an expert in technology. That's not a thing. Being an expert in technology is a huge myth, because even your brilliant son-in-law, I always tell people my major competitor is your brilliant son-in-law. Even the person in your life who is like really involved with computers and maybe a high level programmer, or they work in the computer industry, even that person, they specialize in the thing that they specialize in. They're not necessarily any better with computers than you are. They're just better at this part of it. The other thing is having that curiosity of, why did it do that thing, instead of the fear of fearing that you're going to break it. So the myth that I really want to dispel is that being good with technology is an either or thing. It's not. Everybody can, but you do have to put in that dedicated energy toward figuring out how to do the things you want to do.
Right. So a lot of it, what I'm hearing you say, and I agree, for myself, I'm kind of putting it through my own filter, is,
Right.
building your skill sets, creating a foundation, exposure, ongoing exposure, get more comfortable, just like your seniors. But I found that sometimes I get sucked into maintaining it and working in my digital office. Um, we had a we had a term for it when we were talking earlier. It's like that
Yes. The technology black hole.
technology black hole. Right, right. No, it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, there are times that I'm cleaning up my files and putting them, in folders and arranging them and finding things that shouldn't have been in that folder. And I look up and it's 3 hours later.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing, and it's hard not to get sucked into that technology black hole. But there are times when it is kind of fun, because I do think of organizing your files as like a Tetris game. Once you're really comfortable with how you organize your files, it can be a really fun adventure to do. One of the things that when you're finding yourself getting into a technology black hole, there's two things. There's the, oh crap, I'm getting sucked into a technology black hole. One thing is to stop and go, what do I actually want to accomplish here? Is it important that these files be in their folders right
Right
at
now.
this moment in time, right at this
Right.
moment in
Yeah.
time?
Right
Or
now.
is there something else that I should be doing? And just deciding, okay, well, I can give myself another 15 minutes of organizing these files, and then I actually have to work on, my blog post or my content, or I need to interact with some of my people, answer my emails.
Or feed your family.
Feed your family. No, they can take care of themselves, right? No, but there's also the technology black hole of trying to make a thing do something that it just doesn't want to do. And so you can notice that, oh, okay, this is getting stressful, this is not fun anymore, but you feel driven to it. Think about that as a trigger of, okay, let's step back and let's slow down. What are we actually trying to do? Does the thing actually need to be done? Or did you make enough progress right now? Because like I can spend all day organizing my folders and they're organized. But is it necessary at the moment?
Right.
And so
Right. Being
just
able to be
having
discerning.
that, yeah, having that in your head of, is this necessary, can help you pull yourself out of the technology black hole. And then also giving yourself a little bit of what I call flutter time. Is I like to set my timer for like 15 minutes when I'm finding myself in a technology hole that I'm having fun with. And we're not talking about the ones where you really want to just grab your computer and throw it out the window. That sort of energy needs to be with step away from the computer and reboot it, because at least that'll give you some time where you can't do anything with it while it's rebooting. But the fun ones, declare that flutter time and give yourself 15 minutes and just do it. Just be like, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to organize this and I'm going to organize that, and you can count it as a task that you've completed.
Right. Or give yourself that, time yourself of 10, 15 minutes every day, like a maintenance type thing. Right.
Oh yeah, totally. You can do that. And to also have because it is hard to start with the computer organization. It's hard to start with it, but it's not as hard to continue with it. So what's nice is to, in your task list, to maybe have, instead of just organize files, you could say organize files, and then narrow it down to look at your content folder, like the folder that you have all your blog post word drafts in. Just look at it. Okay, that's your task for today, and then that can encourage you to go and organize that a little bit more and get you into the fun Flutter Tetris like time.
Fun. All right, that's great. Okay, so I appreciate that because that is something that we all deal with, and it's good to have a reminder to just check it out and then be able to maintain it, but not get sucked into it.
Right, right.
So, what is the one thing you can share with people that will make a difference with how they manage their technology?
Whew. Well, I think I mentioned a bit in the previous question, but it is the most powerful you can do is when you get stuck on something is to slow down. Too many times I'll have someone say, Nicole, I want to do A, B, and C. And then we'll open it up and they'll go, oh, I think I know. And then they start randomly clicking. It's like, wait a minute, let's slow down. You want to do A, B, and C. Is A, B, and C the right thing to do? And then we kind of go from there. So it's good to just slow down, take a look, and just recognize that the computer is not smarter than you are. You're much smarter than computer. It's just ones and zeros. It's programmed to do a thing and it can't think for itself. And so even though there's a ton of things that are like, okay, is this me? Am I just doing it wrong? Because the computer does like to make you feel stupid. Or it could just be that whoever programmed that program you're working on, maybe they just didn't choose an intuitive way of doing things. So sometimes it is you, sometimes you're clicking the wrong things, but sometimes it's just not as well done as you think it should be.
Right.
And so stopping and really looking, reading your error messages and looking around the screen are very helpful things.
Right. Well, and we're all different learners. We're different, we learn things differently. We're kinesthetic or auditory or, visual. And so that comes into play as well. And so, I know that when I was first learning the computer technology, just different things, my husband would sit down and he'd try to show me something, but he'd show
Mhm.
me it 5 different ways. You could do
I
this,
know.
or you could do this, or try this, or this could work for you, or even that. And my head
Right.
was swimming. I'm like,
Yes.
whoa, just give me one way to do it, and then I can master it, and then I can figure out
Yeah.
another way. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
You
sure
bring
that,
up an Yeah, you bring up a very interesting dynamic, and I come across it a lot because there are 5 different ways of doing it. And the thing is that everyone resonates with a different way. And so when I'm working with someone, there's part of the working is, okay, how does this person learn? How do they interact? Are they, as you said, are they more tactile, kinesthetic? Are they more visual? Are they more audio? Are they more, it's like, how do they want to learn? And then also, what is consistent most often? So I remember doing a teach where I was really big on the start button. Back in the day, everything you did on the computer started with the start button. Well, then in one of the Windows iterations, they took it away. So that made it difficult. But when I'm working with someone as far as checking your email and moving things around and how do you do this thing, the first thing is to figure out what is the best way that they should do it. You have those 5 ways and knowing them is good, but you're right, Cyndi, we need to narrow down to how is the way that I'm going to do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I could do it 50 different ways, but this is the way that I like to do it. And that's a great place to start, but it's also good to have 2 or 3 ways in the back of your head
right,
because sometimes that way just doesn't work.
right,
It doesn't
yeah,
feel
and
like it because it's Tuesday.
yeah. There's things that happen with your computer where you have to do it manually. You have to hit the
Mhm.
control, whatever.
Right.
Um, And so I get that, but when you're first learning, I keep
Yeah.
telling my husband, keep it simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Give me one way first.
one
One way
way
first.
so I can master it and then I can add on to my repertoire, right?
Right,
Um,
right. And yeah, and that one way tends to be somewhat consistent for people like, okay, show me where to, for me, I like to click on things. my husband being a programmer, he wants only keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
So, figure, okay, which one are we going to go with?
Right.
Is-
Right. Yeah. My husband's a keyboard shortcut guy too. He's always leaning over and saying, try this, do this. I'm like,
and I'm
how
like,
do you
I don't
do all
remember
that?
that.
Is there a
I know
chart?
cut and paste keyboard. Yeah.
I need a chart to have by my computer to look at. I mean,
Right.
there's basic ones, of course. We know cut and paste and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's, kind of wrap a circle, what do they call it? Wrap a
Put a
string
bow on
around it, wrap a bow,
it. Put a bow on it.
a string, a bow. So, give us some takeaways here give our listeners some takeaways that they can implement, into their just everyday use of the computer, something that they can be able to improve either their habits or something that you found has been of service.
So I've got about 3 takeaways I think that I want to share. One, we'll say, even with a technology that is designed for ease of use, like say Gmail or Canva is designed for ease of use, no matter how well designed it is and no matter how much they say it's easy, there's going to be some ramp up time. There's going to be some time where you're going to need to poke around at it and try things and figure things out. And so you'll want to prepare yourself for that. It's kind of just say, hey, if it's, it's going to take me a couple hours to figure out what I'm even looking at. So don't get frustrated if you can't figure out an easy thing in the first 5 minutes, because those easy things need that ramp up time. I always recommend that people look at the settings almost first, because often the default settings that a program has will give you clues as to what it can do. And as you use it, what you might want to have it do that it's not doing.
Right.
And then the second takeaway is that technology glitches. And it glitches for high, people who are on the computer all the time and want to know all the little bells and whistles. It glitches for them probably more than it glitches for the person who goes on it, once a week to check email. No matter how well you know it, no matter how well you use it, it's always going to glitch. That's just part of its nature. And so being prepared for that is super key, so that you don't let it make you feel stupid.
Yeah, you're not freaked out. You're not stressed. You know that's okay, and you know what to do. Just like it reminds me of when we had the Zoom bomber, you knew what to do. And so you took action. So, if you're watching it spin and spin and spin, going to sleep,
like,
reboot, right?
Right. Yeah. Reboot, go make some tea, give it a little time out. That and the last one, just don't let your technology bully you. Just don't let it. Say, no, you're not going to bully me. It's not that powerful, and it's not personal. The computer is never personally out to get you, because it's not an adamant entity. It's
Right.
very dumb. It really is.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate all of your, insights and sharing about your journey. I personally love to be able to, like, over COVID, I created my YouTube channel where this will be, hosted on this conversation today. And the thing about, different platforms is you have to understand how they work. So I went on YouTube and I couldn't figure out from YouTube how to, do my banner art or upload
How to YouTube.
how to YouTube. I couldn't figure it out. So I just posed the question, how do you set up the banner art? And there were other people that weighed in and had videos on how to create and navigate YouTube, which I thought was intriguing. And then, so I wrote down, took notes, took copious notes, wrote down, went back to do it, and the platform had changed, because I, of course, went and looked for ones that were had been watched a lot. They looked like they were credible, but they were outdated because the platform had changed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, happens all the time. I tried doing an online, I tried creating an online course for Gmail, and 2 weeks after I completed my masterpiece of a course, the whole platform changed. And that's the nature of it.
Yeah, and so that's, although I'm talking specifically, and you use an example
Yeah,
too of YouTube, it could apply to anything, right? So we have to be able to
absolutely.
adapt. And so I went to the most recent and then went ahead and did it. I also wrote down my steps. So, there's a process that you can figure out, even
Mhm.
if you're not techie like me, um, to have that, be that comfort zone and build your skill sets. So, well, this has been great. So, Nicole, what is the best way for our listeners to work with you or get to know you or find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so I have created a game, and that's kind of that's the best introduction to me, and it's called the Digital Office Rescue Game, and you can find it at luxcentric.com/game, and so that's luxcentric.com/game, and it's about 19 things that will take you through the journey of organizing your digital office. And so it's a nice low pressure way. There's also an email list that you can subscribe to on that page. It's a very low pressure way to get to know how I work, some of my strategies that I share, and to determine whether or not my content is useful to you. And I put the link in the chat box if anyone wants to check that out immediately.
Nice. Yes, that is very fun that you've created that. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. And this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to ask the expert any questions that you have or any ahas or epiphanies. So feel free to unmute yourself, because some of you I'm not able to unmute, or unmute yourself before you want to ask a question. So feel free to jump right in. Who has a question or a thought or wants to just share their ahas? Hi, Dave. I see that you're joining us.
I stopped eating, so I put my picture back.
This is lunchtime after all.
It just seems to be not quite etiquette to eat on a Zoom call. I don't know where I get that, but it just doesn't seem right. I do have a question. So if I'm a solopreneur and I look out, I want to put on my list of kind of technologies. If I want to get better at technology, what are the kinds of things that people are learning that I should learn in the next year? What are
Ooh.
like the leading businesses that are just, moving ahead? Where are they going in the next year that I need to go?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a big can of worms. Um, as far as from my perspective, the most powerful thing you can do is get really good at your foundation tool. And so that's either your Office 365 apps or your G Suite apps. So knowing all the fun things that they can do is going to be the best use of your time, because everything else is going to kind of land on that. It's a foundation. So like if your G Suite contacts are in order, or your Office 365 contacts are in order, it's going to be easier for you to bounce off to that next CRM system that you might want to implement. So getting really solid on your foundation would be what I would recommend first. And then if you're past that, we'd have a different conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anybody
So how
else?
many? Yeah,
Anybody
yeah.
else
And
that landed for you during our conversation? Or
what
chat?
platforms are everybody on? So who's G Suite and who's Outlook, and do you like it?
So G Suite is Google, right? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I mean G Suite generally means that you have your email address domain hosted with the G Suite platform, which means that you could be Nicole@luxcentric.com or Cyndi@exceptionalconnections.com and have G Suite be the one that manages that. Office 365 can be that, but isn't always that.
So I'm Christine. Hi, everyone. And
Christine.
I think like a lot of people, I have a kind of a hybrid situation.
Yeah.
So my domain and my email and my calendar are on G Suite.
Mhm.
And I Nicole, she knows some of the pain I've been through in making that decision to be on G Suite.
Yeah.
But I have to use Microsoft tools with my clients,
Right.
and you know, I have to use Excel. I can't. Google Sheets does not cut it for me in terms
Yeah,
of
not for a power
functionality.
user of Excel. Yeah.
Right, exactly, or Word for that matter, or and then there's PowerPoint, and all three of those tools. I mean, I know people. There's more you can do on the G Suite platform than you might think with Google tools, but it's still not at the same level. So my question is really about how do we make the decision to go through the pain and expense of upgrading our software? Because I really struggle with that. You know, it's like there's things that are annoying me on Office 2013, and one of them I just came across is I can't actually make pivot. I'm sorry.
Pivot tables.
Pareto charts. Sorry, Pareto charts. And I'm having to make a lot of Pareto charts, and it's really painful in 2013. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, Christine, how many pivot charts are you really going to make? Is it worth,
Right.
you know, upgrading my whole tool platform and going through that expense, and then going to the, you know, the annual licensing fee, which I've been avoiding for years because I have my own software. And what kind of ideas do you have, Nicole, for making that decision? Like, what kind of things should I be considering and weighing?
So that one is a big one, and there's good news, bad news, as with anything. The good news is that when you do transition to the new way of doing things, because the new way of doing things, whether we like it or not, nobody really likes it, but it's the way they're doing it, is the subscription model. So Google has a subscription model with the G Suite, and Office 365 has the subscription model with their platform. The good news with those is that they're not going to change as drastically anymore. So they're going to gradually roll out their updates, and this thing will change on occasion, and that thing will change on occasion, and that thing will change on occasion. So you'll be more used to, this is all the same, and I'll learn this thing. And then this is all the same, and I'll learn that thing over time. So it's going to be less jarring, which is nice. Plus, number two is that the technology support people are going to be able to keep up better and be more supportive. The bad news is that the Microsoft and Google is not really a thing as far as whether you upgrade your Google, because they're just going to do it for you. With Microsoft specifically, Microsoft, every month, year, day that goes by, they're going to make it harder and harder and harder to not join the subscription model. And that's just a reality. So the reality is that you're going to have to at some point. Otherwise, you're not going to get to play Office anymore. So as far as how and when and what, Christine, for your case and what I know of you, you need the Office tools. You need the Microsoft Office tools. And my thought is as soon as you know that you're going to have about a week or so that you're not crazy slammed busy, and you have your $100 and whatever, that's the time that you should do it, because it's going to happen, and delaying it is going to cause you more pain. And I'm sorry that that's the answer. I also believe that you should have a Microsoft account and a Google account. Everybody should have both of those, because there are things that Google does better than Microsoft and things that Microsoft does better than Google. And both of those things can be free, sort of.
So the game we used to play is that Microsoft likes to take away features in their tool platform. Yeah. And if you use those features, it's painful.
Yeah.
So pivot charts is one of them. Pivot charts, the way they handle pivot charts, and then of course Pareto charts is another one. So it's like, you know, that actually used to exist like in 2003, and you could do a lot more things. So
you could do a lot. Yeah.
I'm hearing what you're saying, because I've been through a lot of pain where like there's things I used to know how to do, And in the tool suite I have now, like they've moved everything. You know, they moved the gas pedal and the brakes and the gear shift. And finding them again is really painful.
Right, right. And that's the nice thing about this new online, which unfortunately the Microsoft is it's its whole different animal. And I think of Microsoft, you've got the Microsoft online tools, and they can be thought of more like the Google suite. The Microsoft that you download onto your computer, the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, they are like big, beautifully well-built Victorian houses built before electricity and plumbing. So it's like, and they're all haunted, but they're beautiful and they can do a ton of things and they're haunted. So you're going to come up with really weird, glitchy things. And if you're very proficient in Outlook, especially, you kind of know what those glitchy things are. They're not going to go away. You can't fix them because it was built before this new age of things being in the cloud. And so Microsoft has had to adapt to that. And you know how it is when you're remodeling an ancient house and making it comply with modern standards. It doesn't want to. It makes it angry. But you can. There's still a ton of stuff and beautiful things that the Microsoft products can do. So I feel for you, Christine. I do.
That's a beautiful analogy because it relates to sewing. You know, it's easier to actually sometimes create a new garment than fix a zipper on a pair of jeans, you know? And so, yeah, it's tricky, but that's a great way to look at it. And I'll never, whenever there's glitches, I'm going to think of it as haunted now. Look at you,
it's haunted. Especially if it's Microsoft.
Yeah. That's great.
Nicole, I still use Microsoft Office 2010. I refuse.
I know. Yeah, Nancy, you're another one that eventually they're going to make you switch.
No, because I don't have to use the other stuff. I could just use it on my laptop and be done with it because my business is so independent. So I actually don't have to switch.
Okay.
I love.
And that's the thing too, is that at some point you'll decide whether or not that things have changed or not.
Right. I just don't want to pay for the subscription and have lost most all of my tools.
Yeah, you and Christine are in that similar boat of you know what it does now, and why can't it just be that way?
Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that in.
I like it. It's good to see you. Good to see you on the call, Nancy. I haven't seen you in quite a while.
I know. Good to see you. I'm actually in my massage chair enjoying myself while you guys are talking.
Oh, good.
Glad you could join us. So we have a few more minutes. So anybody else?
Yeah, I thought of another question. So one of my big challenges today is messaging. I've got Slack. I've got Benchmark. I've got Hatchbuck. I've got email. I've got LinkedIn messaging. I've got, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I organize all of this stuff that's coming at me from, and different clients have different preferences for how they communicate. And that's, so what insight do you have? What magic pill can you give me?
Well, so I am a huge fan of straight up email. Email as your hub.
Yeah.
So it's like, because email, everybody has it. Everybody knows basically how it works. Hundreds of millions of people hate it, but they all know what it is and they all have it. So having email as your hub and having that a really, dialed in, streamlined thing, email can do more than, than Messenger and the LinkedIn messages and the Slacks and all those. It can do a ton of stuff as far as organization is concerned. So getting really dialed in with a streamlined email system is step number one. The other thing is determine why you need each one of the communication platforms, and check them regularly as you need and use them as inboxes. So it's like it comes in, take the information that comes in, what do you need to do with it, and put it into a system that will trigger what you need to do with it. So the problem that I have with Messenger and LinkedIn, I don't use Slack because I don't work with a whole lot of teams in large groups and projects. But with those other ones, I think I lost my train of thought here at a second, but the
You're saying the problem,
messaging,
with the other ones,
huh?
the problem you have with the other ones is,
Yeah, the problems I have with the other ones is there's no way to organize them.
yes, exactly.
There just is no way to organize them. So you have to, say, okay, I've received a message. You could often I'll tell people, hey, that's great. What's your email address? I'll respond there.
Oh, that's
And just decide that that's how you're going to do it. Or once they respond, I do have in all of my contacts, what is your preferred method of communication? And so I'll know, okay, this person, they really only respond to me if I message them on Facebook. But copying and pasting that message into a system where okay, this is what they said, that's a strategy that you can also use.
I
It's
use
not a
my
perfect
Google
system.
Calendar as my hub,
Okay.
just to put it in there, for tasks, and then I bring it
As
down
tasks.
in the calendar. And
Yeah,
then
and Google has a task manager and a reminder that integrates with its calendar that is pretty cool now. They've got descriptions in their tasks finally.
Yeah. Dave, your question reminds me of a movie. I can't remember the title of it, but it's like, there's so many portals to be rejected on, and it's
Right.
similar because there's times where, you're in a place, and I guess this is kind of a tag on to Dave's question, where something dings and you're on a Zoom call and you take a look at it, and, it's from my son and he wants to know if I grow winter squash or whatever. And then I go on my day and then I'm like, where did he, it's not in my email, it's not in my Facebook Messenger, it's not, where did he contact me? So you can respond, because you kind of remember, you kind of caught it, but not exactly. So is that kind of similar to what your pain point?
Yeah, I a lot of times I'll remember somebody messaged me somehow, and then but I didn't have time to get to it at that point, and I want to get back. I was like, oh, what was it? Facebook? Was it LinkedIn? Was it?
Right.
Oh, was it? Oh, was it Gmail?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that.
So that's a time suck. I mean, that takes a lot. It could be 15 minutes of just finding out, like, where did that message originate? What was it? So then I can respond instead of just texting a response. So is there an easy answer to that one?
Now there's Slack.
And then Slack, yeah. And a lot of them, you can, I know it's sometimes going to that old school, that less techie version of it is most everything message that you get, you can use cut and paste. So cutting and paste the messaging and putting it into a time management thing, or even forwarding it to your task list is an option. I kind of go back and forth as finding out at how those work, but it depends on just how, if it's not a system that you check regularly enough, then you need to have a more reliable capture system of taking it out of that, putting it in your right one and saying, respond to on Messenger, respond to this on Instagram, but respond to this on LinkedIn, and having that consistent system. The more you do it, the faster you'll get at it.
Right.
I think that's a really important point, Nicole. And I just want to tag onto that and say, back to the hybrid thing. I know you can probably do this on a Google tool, but I use OneNote.
Right, OneNote.
Because I have to keep track of, because I get this happening on, it could be an email, it could be a phone conversation or a text message or a LinkedIn message or whatever. And with my clients or potential clients or even some of my other colleagues, I have to keep track of what people said and what they asked me to do, because my brain is aging and I forget things all.
Right.
So, and also helps you keep a documented history. So I do find myself copying and pasting into OneNote and tracking things there, because you can organize it any way you want to. And what would really be useful sometime is maybe just doing the pluses and minuses of whatever the Google tools are now versus OneNote. I would pay money for that little, it was even a 30-minute class or whatever. That would be a value add for me, because it's always in the back of my mind, am I on the right platform? I'm investing so much in this. And it's just, should I be doing it somewhere else? Is there a better place? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be, it's such a personalized thing that it would be better as just a simple 30-minute topic tackle that we would just kind of hash it out as what do you need to do? What do you want to do? What do you like to do? The Google tool that relates best to OneNote is Google Keep. It's done completely differently, but I actually prefer it over OneNote.
Interesting. Google Keep with a K.
Google Keep, yeah, it's just a very simple little note-taking app, but it's nice because it's fast. Whereas I had trouble with OneNote because it takes so long to load.
Nicole, have you ever used the app Business Calendar? It's specific to the Android platform. It's not available on Apple or Windows.
No.
Because I use that because I tried to use Google Keep and it drove me crazy. And that app is a very sophisticated calendar that completely syncs to the Google Calendar, and it has tasks included on it, and it's really trick.
Okay, yeah, and I tended to, in my own personal business, I got to figure out, well, how do I narrow in my own wheelhouse? And it really is the thing cross-platform, because I have clients who work with Android, iPhone, Apple, PC. So I don't ever investigate something that is going to be so platform specific, just because
it does sync to Android, and Android then can work with Microsoft. I just find it because it does so much stuff. I like stuff concise so that I don't have to travel all around. And
right. And it works great if you're a straight up Android user and PC. Those are the kind of things that, I like those kinds of things, and it'd be great to, play around with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for my business, I don't.
Yeah. And what about with like the question that Ken was asking? I rely on a lot of stuff being driven into my phone through the notifications, so I can see what's coming in that one location, and then I can respond to wherever it came in from.
Yeah, having your notifications dialed in is also a good thing. Any platform that communicates has that notification settings section, and going in there and saying, okay, I want these to all come to my email, or I don't want any of it to come to my email, or come to your pop-up on your phone are good. I love settings. Settings are the first thing I look at when investigating
I
a
do
new.
too. My philosophy is have the information be driven to me. I don't want to chase it down.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for all of your questions. They've been great. This has been fun to be able to, find out what different pain points are. So Nicole, in closing, share with our listeners some parting words of wisdom that you can leave with us.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been fun. Parting words of wisdom, I really kind of I want to hammer that: slow down, decide what you want to do, and then poke around and play with it. Very, very few things that you do will truly break it. Don't throw your laptop into the sea. That is bad.
Laptops don't like water.
You don't like water.
You don't like water. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you enjoyed our conversation to connect, let's get real. We invite you to go to Exceptional Connections on YouTube. We have 20 other conversations that are archived, and love to have you listen to them. We want to be a contribution to our community. Usually the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of the month is when we have conversations to connect. So do go to Exceptional Connections on YouTube and subscribe. We're at 62 subscribers. And so if you can, before you get off this call, go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. My goal is to get to 101 so we can have a vanity URL. So your support in getting to that goal is much appreciated. But otherwise, thank you all for joining us, and hope that you'll come join us at future conversations to connect. Again, ring the bell so you'll be alerted to when the new videos drop. All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you,
thanks, Cyndi,
for hosting, and thanks, Nicole. It was good seeing you.
I'll be in
you
touch,
too,
Nicole.
Nancy.
Thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
Teresa, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Christine.
Good.